I believe there is definitely a pressure to pursue your purpose. And I think sometimes the pressure to find your purpose actually paralyzes you in the process and in the pursuit. And so I think when we are guiding people or talking about purpose, we have to have very thoughtful and mindful conversations around it. Now, if someone comes up to me and says, Jay, I don't know what my purpose is, can you help me? As you just put there, I would focus on the definition of purpose that comes from the Sanskrit term dharma. In my first book, Think Like a Monk, I talk about this concept of dharma, which has many different definitions, but one of my favorite definitions that it has is eternal purpose or eternal duty. It means something that you're naturally inclined to do, something you have proclivities and propensities for. And I think both you and I love the Japanese ikigai, the reason for being, why we live. And dharma and ikigai have a lot in common.
Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
Hey, it's Carmichael, and I make these videos because in my first business, I quit on my business partner. I struggled to keep going. I was making $300 a month and felt like a complete failure. And the thing that saved me, that pulled me up, was studying the stories of famous entrepreneurs. I got the motivation from them. I also got the strategies of what to do next so that I can go off and achieve my dreams. And quite honestly, I still need the stories today myself to continue my motivation to take it to the next level. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Jay Shetty, and my take on his top 10 rules to success. Enjoy.
And so I always tell people, look, purpose is this big, scary word that needs to be simplified. And so my first simplification is, let's see if we can discover 4 things. The first is what you're passionate about, what you're really interested in. And if you're like, Jay, I don't know what I'm passionate about, I don't know what I'm interested in, we go to the root and we say, well, what are you curious about? What is it that you think intrigues you, even if you're not passionate about it yet, if that's a strong word? The second thing I'd say is, what are you naturally good at? What do you already have expertise or skills in that you aren't even aware of or you're not even conscious of? So many of us have so many talents, so many hidden gifts, but we keep placing them on the back burner. The third thing I'd ask is there a pain in the world that you want to solve? Is there a problem in the world that you feel really calls to you? Some people don't find their purpose through their passion. They find it through their pain. They find it through a stress they want to alleviate in the world, a challenge they want to remove from the world. And then the fourth and final one is, as Ikigai says, is, can I get paid for it? And that's a fourth and final consideration, because I don't think purpose has to be something you have to get paid for. It can be something we dedicate our weekends, our evenings, our vacations to as well. And so the way I define it is that your passion makes you happy. And when you use your passion in the service of others, that's a purpose because it makes them happy. So how can you use your gifts and your talents and the things you love to improve the lives of others? That's what purpose really is. And now we're not looking at it as this big word. We're actually looking at it as this broken up equation of, what am I passionate about? What am I excelling at? What problem do I want to solve? And then if I can, how can I get paid for it?
Rule number 2 is embrace who you are.
Where do you begin when it comes to building this new skill around how you think about love?
Mm-hmm.
Where would you tell somebody? Is it rule number 1?
It is rule number 1 in the book, but I think you've just brought out a beautiful point that I want to respond to. And it's that we all have a story that we're writing about love. And the interesting thing is that our mind makes us fiction writers. And we're writing our own fictional version of what our love story looks like. And it changes every single day. One day we feel like anyone would be lucky to have us, but then there's months that go by when we feel we're completely unlovable and we're not enough. And I think it's really interesting because we both know this, that the story you're saying to yourself, the story you're telling yourself naturally becomes your reality because you're looking for the facts. You're looking for those truths in your life. So if you think to yourself, no one's attracted to me right now, you're now going around looking for how many people are not attracted to you and don't look at you. It's almost like when you make a decision to say, I'm thinking about buying this brand of car. or I'm thinking about buying this brand of whatever it may be. Now you see that brand everywhere, you hear it everywhere.
Right.
It's not that suddenly everyone just started buying that car on the streets or buying that product or brand, but you see it everywhere because it's at the forefront of your consciousness. And so if the story is, I'm not good enough, I'm not ready, and I'm unlovable, which is a very true and real story of the people that are writing in for us, that unfortunately is what you're going to perpetuate. And that's why rule 1 is about what you do alone. Because if you're waiting for someone to love you, to believe you're lovable, that means you're saying that the day they change their mind, you're now immediately unlovable. And so you're deciding whether you're lovable or not based on whether someone else thinks you're worthy of love. And I think that sets us up for a lot of pain, a lot of stress, a lot of pressure.
Rule number 3 is practice self-care.
I remember during the pandemic and even after, I was getting calls from so many people that I work with or so many people that my work is involved in. It could be companies, it could be people, it could be individuals. And they were all just saying, oh, Jay, your work's so important now. And I was just like, I've always believed mental health is important. I've always believed that there is no quality of life without good mental health and well-being. And I don't think that that's actually ever changed or will ever change. I think that's a truth that will last the test of time because as a human, you get a mind, you get a body, and you have to take care of it. And so I feel really happy that people are coming to that realization and reflecting. I feel sad that it's coming because of pain and suffering. And I feel, it saddens me that we have to go through so much tragedy and pain to come to a point of realizing actually I have to take care of this. But I know even in my own life, that's what I had to do. Like the only time I took my body seriously was when my body gave up on me. And the only reason why I worked really hard on my mind at times was because it was challenging. And so I think we do find self-care in times of discomfort.
Rule number 4 is be a guru.
We have a lot of fun together. We've had a lot of fun over the last 10 years, for sure, without a doubt. Like whether it was when we've traveled together, when we've started Joyo together, when we've moved, whether we, we're in this tiny shoebox apartment or whatever it was. Like, we've had a great time. But the greatest great time is when you're learning and growing together because you actually learn how to improve your relationship. And that's what makes your relationship better. Yeah. So when I talk about your partner as your guru, what I love is that if you look at Eastern traditions, gurus are not the people who tell you what to do or preach to you or act smarter than you. The guru, like the monk gurus, they would come and sit at the back of the class and listen to a young monk give a talk. Like that's what gurus did. Or when you bow down to an elder guru, the guru would bow down to you on the floor, even if they were twice your age. Like the guru was not a figure that made you feel inferior.
It's not authoritative.
It's not
in that way,
but the guru was a figure that constantly made you feel like they believed in you and that you had potential and that you had value to offer. And so when I wrote this chapter called Your Partner is Your Guru, I break down the qualities of a student and I break down the qualities of a guru. And all of the qualities of a guru is generally your partner who believes in you. And what I found in relationships is that it's so easy for you to be the most critical person of your partner. Yeah. It's so easy for you to say that, oh yeah, you're just the worst and you're so like lazy and you're just like, you're not ambitious enough and you're not organized enough. Like it's so easy. And I found so many couples were in that space. Even if you don't say it, we feel that about our partners because people say it to other people. The amount of people that come up to me and say, my partner's not ambitious enough. He doesn't work hard enough. Like, oh, she doesn't understand enough. She's too clingy. Like we have these negative views. And actually, we should be the ones who see the potential in our partner. Of course, beyond any, and I make this very clear in the book, beyond any abusive or toxic relationships, we should look at the potential in our partner. We should be the ones who are like making them feel like they can grow and become something. Of course, not ridiculous and stupid ways, but in a healthy way.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Rule number 5 is build positive routines.
How does your morning routine, which I think we spoke about the first time you came on my show, how does that help you tap into your purpose, or I guess continually refine your purpose? Because I think there's something really powerful in what you do each morning that many of us can learn from.
So my morning routine is made up of 4 key habits. And these 4 habits I have in the form of an acronym called TIME, T-I-M-E. And so T-I-M-E, the T stands for thankfulness. I start my day with thankfulness and gratitude. And the way I do that, Rangan, is I have a little Post-it note next to my bed that says, what are you grateful for? And so the first thing I see in the morning is this Post-it note that says, what are you grateful for? It's a question back at me. I remember when I used to have not a bedside table, I'd have it on my ceiling. I'd have it on my bedside wall. And what I love about that is you can write down any question you want. This comes from the idea that we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts per day. And studies show that 80% of them are negative and repetitive. Now, that's quite scary to look at. And the truth is you can't control 60 to 80,000 thoughts per day, but you can control the first thought of the day and the last thought of the day. And so for me, when I wake up to that Post-it note, I am training myself to make the first thought of the day a grateful one, a thankful one. The I in my acronym stands for intention or insight. And I try and set my intention for the day. Usually my intention is I want to be of service. I want to be able to give love. I want to express love. I want to be an ambassador of purpose and compassion in my life, in my day. And then there could be a more specific intention. Like today, it's like, well, I hope I get to share energy with Rangan. I know Rangan's been going through a lot of personal things today. I hope that my energy, he's choosing to spend time with me. I hope that that can serve him, serve his community. And so I'm setting a really powerful intention. The M, T-I-M, M is for meditation. I meditate every morning. I do 3 types of meditation, which is what I was trained in as a monk. It's meditations I teach. It's breath work for the body, visualization for the mind, and mantra for the heart or soul. And so I do my 3 techniques. What I find is really what I'm trying to do is in the morning is align my body and mind. Because what I find is, Rangan, we usually wake up in the morning and our body is ahead of our mind. How many times, anyone who's listening or watching, have you ever felt where your body's running around, but your mind is just still in bed? Or you experience the opposite. You wake up and your mind is racing, trying to do everything, but your body is feeling exhausted. And so for me, breath work brings my body and mind together. Visualization allows me to visualize the day. What am I going to do? How am I going to show up? Who are the people that I'm going to meet? What kind of energy are we going to exchange? And then the mantra or sound meditation is the repetition of sacred sounds, affirmations that again become my internal dialogue. And then E is exercise, movement. At the moment, I've been hiking. I've been doing a 45-minute to an hour hike every day to get some really good cardio in, to get my heart rate moving. And so that's my morning routine, pretty much 5 days a week. It's probably a couple of days a week that I'm a bit more flexible.
Rule number 6 is practice solitude.
I think it's pretty important for people to be able to be alone before they try to get into a relationship.
Yeah, I think we've created this feeling in society where loneliness is the enemy. Like being alone is seen as a weakness. So when someone goes to school and throws a birthday party and not many people show up, you're unpopular. Whereas if lots of people showed up, you were really important, you were significant.
It'd be brutal. I can think of few things that would be more devastating to a kid than no one showing up to your birthday party.
Exactly, and that's how it's framed, that's how it's talked about. And then the next thing is like,
would you tell your kids if they went to have a birthday party and nobody showed up, Jay, would you really be like, hey, solitude is a good thing? Like, how would you?
Well, I'm not a dad, so I can't say, but what I would say is that I would change it in the invite process. So I would ask them to only invite people that they felt really connected to, or they felt they really vibed with and wanted to celebrate their birthday with. So I think the challenge is when you're a kid, you also hand out way too many invites. So I think that's what ends up happening, is that you think a good birthday party is a packed room. And even, I mean, people still feel that till they're 50, 60, 70. Like, that doesn't go away.
Until they're dead.
Yeah. Until they're dead, right? Like, you feel a good birthday party or a good event. Even when people say, like, when I die, like, if there's loads of people there, that will be a thing. I think we've just programmed ourselves to believe that if we're not surrounded by people, we can't celebrate and we can't be celebrated. It has to be about scale of how many people are there. And I would say that's one measurement, but the other measurement is the depth of how well they know you. I know tons of people who threw a great birthday party at 50, 500 people showed up and they felt, I went to a birthday party this year. It was a big birthday party. And I was speaking to the person whose party it was, and they were like, so many people invited people I didn't know to my birthday party, and they felt lonely at their own birthday party. If I ever had kids, I wouldn't want them to feel that. And even for myself, I don't want to be in that position. I'd rather have, I saw this thing on Instagram, and it was someone had posted like, it was like a 10, this is in British currency, it was like 10 pence and then £1. And so 10 pence is larger circumference than the pound, but the pound is greater in value. And so the caption on Instagram said that my circle has shrunk in size, but has increased in value. And I was thinking that to me resembles the kind of life I would want for myself and for my children if I had them. But if I could have both, that would be amazing, obviously. But I don't know how real it is to be able to say we can have both. So I think what I'm trying to say with solitude is that if there isn't a sense that I am happy with myself, with my own company, with the thoughts that circle around in my mind, imagine how complex that is when you add another confused individual who's not happy with their thoughts, not happy with who they are, not happy with their mind. And now in a relationship, you're putting two confused people together. Why is there pain? Why is there fallout? Why is there so much disappointment in a relationship? In my opinion, and from the perspective of the Eastern studies, is that because there's an internal dissatisfaction in both people that they're now bringing to each other. And so the strength of solitude is using that time. I've still not found a better solution for self-awareness than solitude. Because in solitude, it's the only place you get to hear your own voice and make sense of other people's opinions. If I'm standing in the middle of a group of 100 people and they're all yelling their opinions at me, chances are some of them are going to rub off, some of them are contagious, some of them I'm going to reject, and I don't get the space and time to make sense of what's my voice and what's noise. Whereas when I get time to myself, I get the opportunity to reflect on and introspect and go, do I want that thought to be mine? How does that fit into my life? How do I feel about this, right? You get to have that dialogue with yourself. And I feel we've lost the art of self-talk and self-dialogue.
Rule number 7 is avoid complacency.
You're the bottom of the pile. You put everybody else ahead of your own needs. And like you say, you crash and burn. And then you go, oh, right, how am I going to help myself here? It's a real cultural shift that we need to make to actually be kinder to ourselves. It's quite simple, and I'm saying it from the point of view that I have not nailed this one at all.
Yeah, same. And I always say to people, and I'm saying this to myself now as I'm saying it out loud, which is when things are bad, work hard. And when things are good, work harder. And no one wants to hear that, because when things are good, we just want to enjoy it. We just want to live it. We just want to appreciate it. But we don't realize that when things are tough, that's when you put in the extra hours. But when things are really good, a little bit of extra refinement and fine tuning means you can stay there. It means you can keep thriving and keep growing. Otherwise, that complacency is what leads to that crash. And so if times are good for you right now, I really hope you'll invest a bit more in yourself. If times are tough for you right now, then naturally you'll be investing in yourself. But yeah, just don't. I've seen that in my own life. Like whenever things are good, I'm always trying to plant the seeds for the future.
Rule number 8 is get a mentor.
Norman Cousins once said, "The tragedy of life is not death, but what we let die inside of us while we're still alive." The hardest thing to realize is the number one reason our dreams don't come true is because we don't come through ourselves. We hide them away. We pretend they don't exist. We try to forget they're there. It makes no sense. It's been locked for so long, we've even forgotten its name. Everything we do today feels like it's all the same. Our dream is like a prisoner trapped within us, a vacant listener, lacking more vision until someone comes and says, you don't see your own potential. Sometimes we need an internal intervention, but when we can't have that, a guide or a mentor or a coach can provide the trigger and catalyst for deeper understanding. And when they ask us, what's your passion? We shrug it off and say, that stuff doesn't happen. And then they push us a little further, probe us to think deeper. They're always focused on helping us find a hope inside of ourselves. Let me ask you, would you let someone who had incredible potential die right next to you? You would never do that. So why do we let them die right inside of us? That's why the missing link is a coach. A coach reminds you of your potential and sees what you don't see. Some of us get given people, some of us get given lessons, but all of us get given moments to change the trajectory of our lives. We can't imagine Kobe Bryant without Phil Jackson. We can't imagine Serena Williams without Patrick Mouratoglou. We can't imagine Tom Brady without Alex Guerrero. Maya Angelou said, people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. Picasso said that the meaning of life is to find your gift and the purpose of life is to give it away. Coaches can be found in books. Mentors can be found in schools. Guides will be found throughout life. We don't have to be in the same room to understand their point of view. We don't have to know them for them to show you the way. We just have to have the burning desire to learn. Everyone we admire has been coached, directly or indirectly. We're coached by our exes unconsciously. We're coached by nature indirectly. We're coached by coaches intentionally. Everyone you admire has someone behind them. Someone you've probably never heard of, someone you might not have seen, but they're there. As Zig Ziglar said, a lot of people have gone further than they thought because someone else thought they could.
Rule number 9 is be self-aware.
You have to know whether you're someone who likes to be thrown in the deep end or whether you're someone who likes to build up incrementally. I'm generally someone who jumps into the deep end. So I was pushed in for 5 minutes and that works for me. Because for me, I'm the kind of person who needs to be pushed off to break the mental barrier to then go back and build a habit. That's my self-awareness. I became a monk in order to learn these things. I'm an extreme person. That's how I learn and build habits. But someone else goes to me, actually, Jay, I like meditating for 5 minutes a day and it works for me. And now I have confidence. I can do 10 minutes a day. I can do 15. And I love that. So I don't think it's an either or. I genuinely don't. That's not a cop-out. I think you have to know who you are. And so if I want to learn something, I'll schedule the whole weekend. If I wanted to learn archery, I would set up archery classes for 8 hours a day all weekend. I wouldn't learn it by doing archery once a week because I want to figure out whether I'm deeply interested and care about this enough to actually commit to it weekly. But that's my mindset, that's who I am. So I think the first thing I'd say is 10 minutes alone every week where you sit and you just observe your thoughts and write down every thought that comes up. This is weird. I hate this, it's boring. Oh, I can't believe Jay and Tom told me to do this, right? Like whatever else is coming up, and write it down and just become comfortable becoming aware of your thoughts. And what you'll find is that the first time you do this, it is just going to be random noise like that. What shall I eat tonight? What's going on? It's just going to be that stuff. It might even be, I hate this, I'm uncomfortable, this is not fun, I'm bored. Like it will just be natural dialogue like that. What you'll find is the next time you do it, or after a couple of times that you do it, you now might start asking interesting questions. You might now start noticing a pattern of thoughts that repeats itself. Like, oh, I've just been thinking for a week about what that person said to me about how I look. Or I've been thinking about what that person said to me about something I did online, and it's just been in my mind and it keeps repeating itself. Now you're gonna start to find what you spend most of your time on. So studies show we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts per day, and 80% of them are negative and 80% of them are repetitive. So if our life is not transforming our thoughts, now if I asked you, what are you thinking about? You're a self-aware person. I'm pretty sure you could tell me on any given moment what you're thinking about. You ask most people what they're thinking about, the reaction will be an emotion, like I'm just stressed, I've got too much on at the moment, but we can't be really clear. So what this is giving you is a clarity of what are those repeating negative thoughts and how do we want to change them. So that's step one, is even becoming aware of the thoughts. So if I ask an average person, when you wake up in the morning, what's the first thought you have? Oh, I'm tired. That's the first thought for most people. You finally made it to coffee, you had your morning coffee and you're thinking, God, I hope this coffee gets me through the day because I'm so tired. Second time you've had the thought. You get to lunchtime, you're like, God, is it only lunchtime? And I can't even eat lunch because I'm busy working. God, I'm so tired. You get to 6 p.m., maybe you've got to work an extra hour because no one finishes work at 6 anymore. 7 p.m. you finish, you go, I'm exhausted, I can't wait to get home. You get home and somehow at 11:37 p.m. you get the courage to watch another episode and you repeat the cycle, right? That's 6 thoughts in the same day.
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is learn to manage stress.
I live a high performance, productive, efficient, purposeful life. I have for quite a few years now. What that means is I am constantly dealing with also high levels of stress and monitoring and managing them in high doses. What that also means is that if uncontrolled or if not communicated effectively, there are times when I can be snappier and more irritated at my wife because she's the person that I'm around all the time. And what I started to realize, Rangan, was I was becoming someone I didn't want to be, because when it came to the person I love most in this world, who's my wife, I was being irritable, I was being snappy, I was releasing my stress, not in a angry, loud, shouty way. That's not who I am. But even if it was passive aggressive, it could be silent or subtle, but it was still not healthy. And I started to look at that and I think, wait a minute, if I'm trying to be a good person, if I believe I'm a good person, why am I acting in ways that are not aligned with myself? And I think everyone can relate to that. When you've had the stress of your day, or your boss is giving you a hard time, or the kids haven't been well behaved today, or whatever it may be, and now you and your partner are the ones sharing all that stress. And I started to realize a couple of things. The first thing was managing stress was as important as managing my relationship. And that's the point you've just raised. You think the challenge is in your relationship. Chances are the challenge is in how you manage stress. Yeah. When I've meditated effectively, when I've rested and slept my 8 hours, 7 to 9 hours a day, when I've set my intention, I am less likely to be bothered by the levels of stress. And the second point that I understood was that I'm not going to be able to perfectly manage stress all the time because I'm not perfect, I'm human, but I can communicate that to my wife ahead of time. So I'll give an example. I'm traveling for the next couple of weeks, or I'm getting ready to travel, and I'm not with my wife right now. She's in London because she has some family, someone's not well in her family. And if we were together, what I'd be saying to my wife is, hey, I just want you to know the next couple of weeks are going to be stressful for me. So if you find me kind of frantically running around or hectic, just know that I'm going to be experiencing a bit of stress. If you want my undivided attention, just let me know and I'll be there for you. But I just want to preempt the fact that I'm going to be slightly more stressed out next week. So if I'm not as present, if I'm not the same as I usually am, just don't take it personally. It's not about you, it's me. And I think saying that and communicating that ahead of the time just saves the other person from having so many other feelings about what's going on. And then you can actually deal with it better.
Just as there's junk food, there's junk media. And junk media is as addictive as junk food, but it's not great for us. This is my belief. If you present people healthy food, but in a way that looks and tastes like junk food, they will switch. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to create content that looks and tastes like junk food, but isn't, and it's real media. And so for me, it's like, how can we create that on the platform where people already are? And what you've shown me, and this is my belief in people, I believe people are smarter than we think they are. I believe people are deeper than we think they are. I believe that people are more beautiful than we think they are. And when you deliver content at that level for people, they respond. What we need is for everyone to tell their story authentically. You don't have to go and break a boundary. You telling your story authentically and sincerely is breaking a boundary, because there's no one like you. And so when you do that, you're giving power to someone to be them, right? When you're more you, everyone gets power to be more them. Don't have a to-do list, have a to-be list. Like, who do you want to be today? Because that's where happiness comes from. When you've ticked off everything on your to-do list, but you're really stressed out, are you happy? No, you're not, because we don't get happy by doing, we get happy by being. And so the way you have a to-be list is like, do I want to be kind today? Fine, I'm going to be kind in every interaction. Do I want to be present today? I'm going to be present in every interaction. What are you going to be? That's going to build happiness, satisfaction, and contentment in your life, not I'm going to do X, Y, Z. If we're observant of our friends, we'll notice patterns in their posting that actually can help us take care of them better. Sometimes people are less open with you and they're more open on social media. Or if you're smart and you really care about someone, you'll actually be able to see from their posts. So if I see from someone's post that they're posting something depressive or sad every day, don't just like or comment on their post. Pick up the phone and call them up, right? It's like actually giving you information. So you're actually learning about that person. Or if you're seeing someone post something happy every day and then they stop posting, that's giving you a pattern as well. So actually I like using the tool as a way of reaching out to people. And I think that shows us and our care as friends is like, can we notice the patterns in our friends posting or whatever they're sharing that can actually help us help them with their mental health?
We've been told for a long time that you're the average of the 5 people you spend most time with. We've heard that again and again and again. And everyone's always like, get together with people you want to be like and stuff. And I've been thinking about that a lot lately. And a lot of my friends were saying, you know, Jay, I'm always around people, but I still feel lonely.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard that. Like people are like, I'm busy, but I'm lonely. I'm around people.
You especially hear it in LA and New York.
Right. Yeah. And you feel that people feel lonely. And I said, the challenge is we need to stop getting together and we need to start growing together. And what I mean by that is schedule one experience once a week with a friend where you're both growing together. Choose an activity that neither of you are pro at. So don't go to yoga class if one of you is a yoga enthusiast and the other isn't. Go somewhere where there's a level playing field. Why? Because you now get a fresh experience together. It's so good because it boosts your confidence.
And who cares if you're bad?
Totally. And because you're going together and you're both bad, there's no pressure. And my best memory of this is once for training, I was sent to Chicago and it was 80 of us who'd never worked together. This was when I joined a corporate company. 80 of us were sent to Chicago for training, but we were told it was Chicago, but actually we were 2 hours outside of Chicago in the middle of nowhere. And we'd be at training 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then at 6 p.m. it was too late to get into Chicago.
Right.
So we'd have to do something. And the only thing we could do is play sport because there were all these outdoor sports places. 10 of us every night would go out and we played volleyball in the snow. None of us had ever played volleyball before. I could pick up the phone to any of these people today because we all just had this crazy, unique experience together.
That's so funny.
And you're learning something together. And I think we underestimate this. Learning something every day is huge for your self-care.
Right.
Because you only feel good about yourself when you feel you're progressing. We don't ask people in our life interesting questions, and therefore we don't get interesting answers. If you ask the same boring, everyday questions to everyone in your life, you're simply going to receive the same answers as you did yesterday, last week, and even last year. This is something I learned on my podcast, On Purpose. I get to sit down with some of the most fascinating minds in the world, but I've learned that I have to ask the right question in order to receive an answer that's going to help all of you that are listening. At the end of my podcast, I have this final 5 round where they have to answer the questions in either one word to one sentence. And almost every time I'll say, okay, ignore my rule, tell me how you really feel, because the answer is so fascinating. Now, I want to share with you some of the questions that I asked during that time that I think will benefit you when you're really getting into a conversation as well. If you met your younger self today, what would make them happy and what would make them sad? What situations make you feel awkward and why? This one's actually a great icebreaker because they might say this very moment. With some curiosity and humor, what did you recently buy that you now regret? I love that one. Some of my favorite ones that I ask on my podcast are, what's the best advice you've ever received? And what's the worst advice you've ever received? You'll be shocked by some of the answers that people share. And my ultimate favorite, if you could create one law that everyone in the world had to follow, what would it be? This is a question that has been shared for thousands and thousands of years, but it truly helps you understand someone's values.
Failure is just great feedback in showing you how much you care. If I failed at something and I really cared about it, I would keep going. If I failed at something and I didn't want to get back up for it, I probably don't care that much. And so failure is actually showing you whether you care. Failure is reminding you that you need to grow somewhere. And I think one of the things that we forget is that you're failing at something you're passionate about or that you like. But I always question whether our expertise is right. You either feel boredom or frustration. So you feel boredom when your skills are higher than your challenge. How many of you have ever experienced that? Where your skills are really high and then your challenge is really easy and you're like, I'm bored, this is too easy. And he says you experience frustration when your challenge is greater than your skills. And so a lot of us settle that. We graduate from college, maybe we go on a few training days, and then you never learn anything new ever again. When actually, our challenge is always growing as our career grows and our personal life grows, but our expertise stays pretty much the same. So I would say whenever you feel frustrated by failure, it's a good sign that you can actually go deeper on your expertise and level of work. And actually, failure and reacting to failure in that way is going to boost your self-esteem and confidence more than anything. So actually, sometimes failure is just going to open doors that you never imagined. And I always say to people, you'll get to where you want in life, just not in the way you imagined it. Balance is not based on time, it's spent on energy. We trying to balance our life based on how much time we spend with someone as opposed to how much energy we give it. I'll explain what I mean. If you said to your boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, whoever's in your life, your friends, and you said, I really want to spend time with you. And then you spent the next 2 hours watching a show on Netflix, but you were both on your phones and you didn't talk. Did you like that? Is that what you wanted? No, you wanted an exchange of energy. You didn't want an exchange of time. So when it comes to balancing your day, ask yourself, where's my energy at? What energy do I need? And what energy do I want to give? Not have I perfectly managed my time. Balance is not equally dividing yourself. It's directing yourself back to where you want to be. We've all heard the story, and I'm just sharing it again to give context. We've all heard the story of the two wolves or the two dogs, however you want to phrase it. And if you haven't, I'll tell it now. It's the story of how inside of us there are two dogs, two wolves, and they're fighting for supremacy. So inside you, one is the initiator and one is the responding. Your whole life, you've been feeding and listening to the initiator. So your initiating wolf is strong, powerful, bulky, aggressive, because it's been fed well your whole life. And your responsive dog, your responsive wolf, has not been fed, has not been listened to. And so it's weak and feeble and meek and humble and doesn't even stand to fight. So when they two come to fight inside of you, this wolf's just gonna eat that wolf right up. And that's what's happening right now. So for all of us, whatever two wolves you're seeing, whether it's your mind and your intelligence, whether it's your intuition versus what your parents say, whether it's expectations of society versus your expectations of yourself, like whatever two wolves you have inside of you, the one that wins is the one you feed and the ones you have been feeding. Now, if you're at a point where you are and where I am and where all of us are in different scenarios of our life, where we're trying to shift and start feeding the other one, it's hard because the other one's just been fed more, it's stronger, it's able to push you, it's able to dictate you. And this is where detachment's so key, that detachment doesn't mean that you own nothing. Detachment means that nothing owns you. And most of us have become owned by our darker wolves. Most of us have become owned by the self that we don't want. So that conditioning has been drawn up. The only way to break it is to disrupt the pattern, to really break that. It has to be, and this is why I talk to people about immersive experiences. Like you meditating for 10 minutes a day on a headspace, that's wonderful and I recommend it, but that's not gonna shift this in a drastic way. Right. You are going to have to go and spend a week out in Joshua Tree with the shaman. You are going to have to take a break in Jerusalem, right? We were both in love with Jerusalem. Like instead of going on a holiday this year, you are gonna have to go on a 3-day intensive transformative retreat. And the reason why I'm saying all these different things is they all have different budgets. They're all available in different countries. You don't have to go to India and live with monks, but you have to do something, and it has to be immersive. Because when you get immersed in something, then you're giving something the power to break your pattern. Right. And I think the challenge is we're trying to solve it by a little thing every day, which is a good start to get us going. But if you're really serious about a massive shift in your life, wherever you're seeing that energy coming from for the right side, the responsive side, you need to go water that. You need to go feed it. You need to go give it energy. And that's what I think we find that, and that's where I think people struggle. They still want to go on their beach holiday. They're like, no, I can't give that up. I need that. Or this weekend, I still need to go and do up my house. And it's like, well, no, like, just imagine what would happen if this weekend you just went on a 3-day retreat that changed your life. Like, imagine if you just gave that energy.
We all have what's called the monk mind and the monkey mind. And as monks, we were trained to look at the parts of our minds that we make mistakes, that fail, that do things wrong, as the monkey mind. If you can look at these things as separate to who you are, you can now actually tackle them, versus when you think you are them, it just leads to guilt, judgment, self-criticism, and self-sabotage, which I'm sure a lot of us are privy to, that we go through this period where we're like, I can't believe I did that. I shouldn't have said that. I just wish I didn't say that in that moment. And that doesn't change your behavior. It doesn't switch how you feel. It just creates more regret. But when you go, wait a minute, that's just the monkey mind. I've got that condition. I've associated with that type of environment and energy. Let me approach it as something that is separate of me. Creating that distance and space from our challenges lets us actually start solving them. There was this amazing moment that I had one of the first days I was at the monastery, and we were inside this room, which was almost like backstage. Like, it wasn't pretty. It was like messy, mixed up, lots of stuff everywhere, which monasteries are like these beautiful, clean spaces. But there was this one room that was almost like a dingy, dirty basement, basically. And so we're in this basement. I'm with one of my monk teachers, and we see this frame, and he makes me look at the frame, and he says, what do you see? And I was like, well, I see dust. Like, that's what I see. And it was just, there was all this dust over it. And so he took his robe and he wiped the dust, and he wiped it a few times because it was pretty dusty. A lot of the dust came into my face, which I did not appreciate. I was coughing away. And then finally, when he dusted the mirror off, I could see myself. It was a mirror. It wasn't just a frame. It was actually a mirror. And he said to me, he said that your identity is like this dusty mirror. He said, when you first try to understand who you are, all you see is dust. And when you start cleaning, trying to figure out that self-awareness, the first experience you have is dust in your face. You cough, you feel uneasy, it's not comfortable. And then finally, as you keep dusting away on the mirror of your identity, you finally see who you truly are. He said most people never get there because they're too interested in the dust that everyone else throws at their mirror. And that's what we get lost in. So I've found that the best way of how, as you said, Ashley, like, how do you do that? One of my favorite ways to do something is when I have a list of choices or opportunities, including this one, I'll write down the reason as to why I'm saying yes to it. So let's say I was invited to 5 different keynotes, and I write down each company that invited me to it. And on top of that company, I'll write down why would I say yes to it? And I'll be honest with myself. And the reason is either money, the reason is ego, the reason is love, the reason is passion, the reason is envy, jealousy, right? It could be any of those. And I'll honestly write down why I would choose that. Or I would write it down because I think my friend's gonna think this is cool, right? I'm gonna be able to message my friends and say, hey, did you know what I did? And so I'll write down that, and I'll write the honest answer down. And now I'll go, well, now how do I upgrade this to be turning up here for love? How do I upgrade this to be turning up here for passion, for purpose? And so when you do that activity, you get to accept and be honest with yourself for the emotion that you're feeling, but then you get an opportunity to say, how do I live an upgraded life? And how do I actually take it a step up?
You have to seek the love and the beauty that you want in what you have now. Because that way you're training yourself to extract meaning right now, which means in the short term, if you can, like those hospital workers were doing, if you can fill that role with meaning and your true passion and what's coming from you, then that's going to lead you to discovering the power of it. And I saw that in my own life. When I came back from being a monk and I worked in the corporate world, I was teaching meditation and mindfulness and the things that I talk today in the corporate world. And I remember in 2014, I was invited by one of our executives to teach mindfulness to 1,000 of my peers at Twickenham Rugby Stadium. And I was speaking in between the CEO and Will Greenwood, who won the Rugby World Cup with England. And I'm sitting there in the audience as a complete nobody and completely around people who are my same age. We all make the same money. No one knows who I am. And there I'm sitting there going, how am I going to share mindfulness? But after doing that experience, I realized that even though my job was digital strategy and social media innovation, and I was a consultant, I was bringing my passion to the workplace, which actually gave me confidence that I could do this outside of the workplace. And that's how the two ideas connect. That when you find how you can apply it to your small world, you then get the confidence and the courage to take it out and make something real of it. Whereas I think a lot of us are waiting for that break to get into doing it in reality, but we actually haven't even tested it or experimented on it in a small space where we can develop our own confidence and courage around it. In Think Like a Monk, I call it, there are an infinite number of seats in the theater of happiness. So we in our minds have started to believe that we think now if you're booking a cinema theater or a movie theater, there's a finite number of seats. You've got to get tickets to the Olympics, there's a finite number of seats. There's tickets to the Coachella, whatever it is. It's like there's a finite number of seats. And so that finite has been drilled so deeply into us. But there are an infinite number of seats, and there's a seat with your name on it in the theater of happiness. And just because I'm already in there doesn't mean you can't be in there. Just because you're in there doesn't mean I can't be in there. And as soon as you realize that, you free yourself from realizing there is a seat with your name on it. And all you've got to do is claim your own seat, and no one else can take that seat from you. And when you start living like that, you can collaborate, you can grow together, you can build together, and you see this as being the epitome of, I was just reading Bob Iger's book, and in there he talks about how it was, and I may get a few of the names wrong, but I think it was Steven Spielberg for sure, it was George Lucas, I think it was Quentin Tarantino, who's saying they used to get together and they would critique each other's movies before they came out. So they'd give each other feedback. You're talking about some of the best of all time, like being comfortable showing their work to their competitors.
Right.
Now that's the point, right? Like, I've never watched a Quentin Tarantino film and felt I was watching a Steven Spielberg film, and I've never watched a Spielberg film thinking I'm watching a George Lucas film, which just shows A, how incredibly creative and talented they are, but also how much they trusted what they were offering to the game.
Yeah.
And that to me is such a powerful metaphor, and I mean, it's not even metaphor, it's literal, of how you live there are an infinite number of seats in the theater of happiness. And one of the biggest mistakes we make in our communication with our teams and groups of people around us is that we assume we already know. Or we come up with a situation in the workplace which we've heard of before, and we assume it's exactly the same as before. When the truth is, human experience may be similar, but it's never the same for the person going through it. And so when we start thinking like children, when we look at things through fresh eyes, when we hear the same problem time and time and time again, but we're able to approach it and say, no, I'm going to be more present, I'm going to be more conscious, I'm going to be more empathetic, and I'm really going to listen in to what this truly is, what the challenge truly is. That's when we accept childlike thinking, not childish, childlike. And when you listen to people around you, how can you bring that same perception and say, I know I feel like I've heard this before, I know I think I know the answer already, but I'm still going to listen because there still may be something more for me to understand. What status quo can you challenge that will make you better, more effective, more productive and creative? How many times do we say that to ourselves? This is just the way it is. We just accept it. The way we're communicating, the way we're communicated to, the way we're thinking, the way people are thinking about us. Where can we start? Again, as a team, as a community, applying that same mindset to shifting things. We will never be able to solve the toughest problems inside our organizations, inside our teams, when we don't adopt community thinking, when we don't realize that someone from another industry, from another area, from another space could inspire us, when we don't realize that if we're not working together, if we're not thinking win-win, it's really hard to shift things. Is that really the best way we can do it? Are we really going to accept the status quo? Are we really going to say we need that critical thinking, but we need to do it together, not to each other, but together? Often critical thinking happens to each other. That person's not getting it right. How can we all critically think together as a community? I would encourage all of you to think about what you do on a daily basis and redefine it, redescribe it. Come up with your own vocabulary
to talk about the incredible work you do. Because the more meaningful you think it is, the more meaningful your team will think it is, and the better your well-being, the better your mental health, the better your own communication, the better your ability to deal with stress and pain. And so when we can explain what we do meaningfully, when we can give it that vocabulary, when we can have the community mindset for the people we work with and the people who work with us, we can truly adopt what it means to be a connected thinker. How many of you spend a lot of your days multitasking? Okay, good. So a lot of us spend our time multitasking. Now studies show that only 2% of us are actually able to multitask. And when most people hear that, they're like, yeah, I'm in that 2%. That's me, right? I'm in that 2%. You're probably not, I'm not, because it's only 2% of the global population of the world. Multitasking is a myth. And I find that as spiritual activists, as conscious change makers, as change agents of the world, whatever you want to call yourself, all of us, one of the biggest mistakes we've seen, and this was the quote that I shared and a thought from Martin Luther King that I've really held close to me, is he said, those who love peace need to learn to organize themselves as well as those who love war, right? Those who love peace need to learn to organize themselves as well as those who love war, i.e., people who are trying to build destruction in the world and distractions in the world are highly organized, highly focused, highly data-oriented, highly strategic, highly process-driven. And so we have to be the same. And when you spend time with Vision or you spend time with the Mind Valley team, you realize their success is intuitive, it is deep, it is full of love, but it is also highly strategic, it is also highly focused, and therefore it's effective. And so for me, my plea to all of you and to myself is whatever we're gonna do, let's get really strategic about it. Let's bring sincerity and strategy together. Let's bring data and dynamism together. Let's bring intuition and insight together, right? Let's not look beyond that and think, oh, that stuff's gonna work out because my intention's nice, right? Your intention's not gonna run a mile, but it will help you run the marathon. But it's not gonna run that mile that you need to do right now. And so for me, intention and action, intention and attention, both of them are required. And so my recommendation is whatever your dream is, whatever you're inspired by, whatever you think is gonna have a positive impact on the world, bring both to that, right? Don't settle for one or the other. I think as creators, we often read a lot of negative comments. How many of you ever have read negative comments about yourself, right? And it's not the most fun thing to read. You know, sometimes what we do, and we do this as humans too, is we amplify the negative. So like, literally everyone here could come up to you and be like, you're amazing, I love what you do. And then one person could come up to you and be like, you're pretty average, like I hated your last video. And we go home thinking about that one person who said that bad thing about us. So my advice is respond to every person that leaves a positive comment. And don't worry about debating with the negative people. Like you're trying to convince people that don't have the right energy for you. But one of the mistakes we make is we don't respond to the negative, or we respond to them, but then we forget about the people who actually leave really beautiful, positive comments. And the thing I love about that value is when you read those positive comments, that's great for your value because now you're not looking at the metric of views or the metric of shares, but you're looking at real impact in someone's life. And ultimately, remember this, there have been some of the worst leaders in the world that have had a lot of followers. And there have been some pretty incredible leaders in the world who had like 7 followers. So that's not necessarily an indication of how powerful you are, who you are, and how amazing you are as a person at all. And I think it's just important to remember that's not really what it's about. We all know that. And it's about the impact you're making on one person's life. And in just that one person can be so much more powerful and meaningful.
Because you made it this far in a video, I want to celebrate you. Most people start and don't finish. Most people never actually follow through. Most people say they want something, but they don't ever do the work to actually get it. But you are different. You are special. Believe Nation, you made it here all the way to the end, and I love you. So as a special celebration, if you put a hashtag believe down in the comments below on this video, I will showcase you and celebrate you somewhere on the screen in a future video because you are awesome. For 10 more amazing rules from Guru Gopal Das, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
time does fly. Time has two wings and one beak, like an airplane. The two wings of the plane called time are past and future. Yesterday and tomorrow are the two wings. And the bonnet, that front peak, is the present.